Hello everybody, welcome back for another Infinite Lagrange tutorial. Today we are going to be focusing on the surgical strike and how to level up your fighter and corvettes very quickly, along with reaping the benefits of destroying outposts, enemy bases, and of course cities. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. To start off, what is a strategic strike? Well, a strategic strike is something that is available to certain carrier class of ships. Now, there are of course actual aircraft carriers, such as the Solar Whale here, but any ship that is capable of holding fighters or corvettes is a carrier. For example, the AC-721 aircraft type, which you get for free. Along with that, you have the Ceres Type A, the Jaeger Type A, and not seen here, the Predator, and the KCCP. Now, each of these ships is not capable of using strategic strike on its own. The only ships that are able to use a strategic strike without any investment are the actual carrier class, such as the Solar Whale, CV-3000, and so on. Ships such as the Ceres have an ability in their command system known as strategic strike. You purchase this for a hefty amount of tech points, and it unlocks the ability for you to use on the map an ability to launch a conical shaped attack on any hostile targets that enter for a set duration. That duration goes from 30 minutes all the way up to 2 hours. The longer the duration, the more ability points it costs up front in order to trigger it. Now, I have already gone ahead and started up 3 strategic strikes right here, overlapping like this, so that you will be able to see the full effect of a strategic strike in action. Now, each ship has a differing strategic strike available to it if it has one at all. The cruisers, the Jaeger and Predator, have strategic strike level 2. This gives them a much longer and wider strategic strike than the Ceres, but it's not as long or as wide as a Solar Whale. Now here in about 15 seconds we will go ahead and take a look at a strike in action, but one thing to point out is the strike itself will only hit enemy fleets within its cone. Any fleet attacking from the flank, coming around the outside, or any fleet attacking it while it is in its 10-minute warm-up duration will not be hit. And in fact, a fleet can very easily be destroyed while its aircraft are preparing for a strategic strike, as they are unavailable for that duration. However, to make up for that inherent weakness, any fleet that enters this cone, once the strike count or warm-up has finished, will immediately be engaged, prioritizing player fleets first, then NPC fleets, and finally structures. Yes, these can hit structures. In fact, they are extremely powerful against structures. More on that later. Now, we have already begun the attack on these 2 fleets, as you can see here. They are being hit at the same time, which is unfortunate, but that's alright. The 3rd fleet does not appear to actually be engaging anything, but it is in fact. Now, when a strategic strike happens, the enemy fleet that is being hit does not use its primary weapons in order to fight. That means ships that have large rail guns and things like that that could potentially shoot at aircraft will not do so. Instead, they only use weapons that are used on anti-aircraft counterattack or active anti-aircraft. So in this particular NPC fleet, we see that they have a CV-3000, an ST-59, 2 Star Sweepers, and a Crasher, along with some bombers, A-101s, and Red Beast. Now, the enemy fighter aircraft do not launch. Because the carriers in question are not fighting with their primary systems, the aircraft do not fight. That means taking down a fleet with carrier craft using a strategic strike is incredibly easy. Additionally, as you can see here, the prioritization of your aircraft often goes front to back. It doesn't count it as if you are flanking a fleet. So using aircraft that have the ability to strike back row targets by a strategy, such as using a VTOS or using KCCP and having the strategy unlocked that allows it to focus down enemy corvettes, things of that nature are very, very important when doing a strategic strike. Now, I'm not using any of those here because this is just a test on NPCs, but in a real scenario, you would want to do so. Now, the big elephant in the room is, why would I want to use a strategic strike? Well, against NPCs, the strategic strike ensures that you will defeat and acquire experience for your aircraft without having to really risk losing those aircraft. As you can see here, these NPCs have not done any appreciable damage to any of my aircraft. Not one. Once this fleet is destroyed, you will get a battle report, experience, and potentially experience tokens, just like you would in a normal fight. Now, using a strike, it does take longer to kill an enemy fleet, but due to the fact that you cannot take any counterattack damage, and the fact that you can set up a strategic strike to have a long duration, it is very easy to wipe out entire fields of NPCs and pirates, such as what we have right here. Now, as mentioned previously, strategic strikes do require quite a bit of AP. In fact, I have none left because I set up 3 strikes and I reinforced all 3 of these fleets with more aircraft. That was 50 AP for each of these fleets to reinforce and strike. I personally do not recommend doing that. Unless you are farming NPCs, it is too much of an investment in your AP and prevents you from defending your fleets should you be attacked by a player coming in from a flank. Instead, I advise that you produce 2 fleets, put all of your aircraft carriers and all of your aircraft into them, and have them be led by only 1 ship capable of using a strategic strike if possible. These 2 fleets have 1 Jaeger each, which is my strike ship. Then all of the rest of the carriers in these fleets have all of their tech points used to increase the power of their corvettes and fighters. The 3rd fleet that I would build would be nothing but powerful, frontline, beefy ships. Ships that can take a beating and stall an enemy long enough for you to cancel your strategic strike. Canceling a strike does take time, so if you do not cancel the strike the moment that combat begins, you could potentially get into a situation where they come in, strike your fleets from the side, and you lose them while they are undefended. Think Ender's Game, if you've ever seen that movie. Now, we're going to go ahead and go over the actual strike craft themselves. I'm going to tell you a little bit about which ones I think are good, which ones I think are bad, and why. Starting off, we have the CV-M11. This ship is just decent. When upgraded, it can hit pretty hard, and it can hit pretty fast, but it's nothing to write home about. The weapon itself only does 96 plus an additional 28 per shot. There are 2 shots, and with upgrades, it can hit fairly decently. However, its primary limit is the fact that it focuses its fire on destroyers and frigates, which in PvP, those are usually evasion tanks. That leaves this ship in a rather bad spot as far as actually applying its damage. Still, if the enemy fleet does not contain any frigates or destroyers, then it can bring all of its damage to bear quite handedly. Next up, we have the Nebula Chaser. The Nebula Chaser, much like the CVM, is an okay ship, but just like the CVM, its damage is small, fast, and so not very good against heavier targets. However, it does prioritize cruisers third, so should your enemy have cruisers in their fleet, it will eventually target them. Next up, we have the Red Beast. Now, this is one of my personal favorites, and one that I would actually advise for using strikes, particularly against NPCs. The reason is because of this heavy ammo bonus. When this ship attacks a cruiser, 60% increased damage and the attack duration goes up. Additionally, the weapon itself does a whopping 250 plus 74 damage. That means that this target against a cruiser is going to hit, and even if it's something like a cast that has 50 plus armor, it's going to hit it very hard. And because the targets are often going to be cruisers, that 300 damage that it would deal is actually going to become closer to 500 damage. Very, very effective. I do recommend these in almost all of your strike fleets. The CV-1103, I'm not going to talk about. It's a bad ship. I only recommend it to fill in spaces, such as in your base defense, if you have nothing else to do. The Silent Assassin, likewise, is a relatively bad ship. The only use case I have found for it is in fighting frigates and destroyers. These offensive cannons actually have a fairly good tracking and prioritize frigates and destroyers. They're not the greatest, but if you don't have anything better, absolutely take advantage of their tracking to take on those frigates. Now going down to the fighter craft that I have. Mistral, not a good strike craft. It only serves one purpose, killing enemy fighters, and because you are airstriking, the enemy doesn't launch its fighters. Not a good one. Do not recommend. The Vitas B, arguably the best strike craft in the entire game. It does energy damage, so enemy armor does not matter. It does a lot of damage per shot, 780 plus 234, so even heavily armored ships like the ST-59, CTG, Spear of Uranus, whatever, this blows right through them like they're made of paper. And it shoots 2 of them. As you can see here, I have 9,000 damage per minute for each of these Vitas Bs. 10 out of 10, do recommend. What's more, because of its high combined damage, this will consistently be top damage when you are striking bases. Following that up, we have the Strix. The Strix is a pretty solid ship overall. It is good at taking down aircraft, but its energy-based weapon is also good at taking down enemy ships. Now, if the enemy ship has a lot of energy resist, it actually will do a lot more damage per minute than you would expect because it has a high rate of fire. And a higher rate of fire is actually better on ships that have high energy resistance because it's percentage based. If you are going to do 1,000 damage in a shot, like the Vitas B, and the enemy has 50% energy resist, well, you only did 500 damage. And if you only shoot 1 a minute, that's 500 damage a minute. However, if like this, you can shoot 20 times in a minute, but only shoot for 150 damage, well, that 75 damage that you were doing per shot is going to actually do a lot more over that 1 minute. The Strix is also particularly good at shooting down aircraft. However, if you are using them for strikes, I do recommend that you pick up the Rapid Fire perk. This will cause it to have a increased cooldown as well as reduced attack duration on frigates and destroyers, but it will prioritize those frigates and destroyers over aircraft. Since there are no aircraft, that means that this will dive in and hit those pesky tundras and things like that in the mid-row. Very, very handy ship. Finally, we have the Sandrake. Just like with the Mistral, it's only good for anti-air. I only have this in my base. I'm not actually using it as part of a strategic strike. I also have one more aircraft, the SCO-2. It is a useless ship. Do not use it. The end. Now, when you use multiple strategic strikes, you are effectively increasing your damage per minute. What I mean by that is each strike can only launch 1 wave of fighter craft at a time. Now, unfortunately, as I am currently striking, I cannot show you what a wave is, but the fleet actually divides up its aircraft based upon whether or not it is a fighter or a corvette, and it tries to group like aircraft together. For example, if I had 10 Strix and 10 of my VTOS B, it would try to group those Strix and VTOS B together and launch them as separate waves. Each wave can only hold so many aircraft, so it is impossible to launch all of them at once. Now, even though these only can launch one wave at a time, by having multiple fleets launch, you can effectively double or triple the amount of airstrikes that you are putting out. This is particularly good in coordinated PvP, as you can have multiple fleets be set up with, say, 3 or 4 flagships capable of using a strategic strike, and then have your allies reinforce you with big, slow-moving aircraft carriers that can hold 6 or more aircraft each. This allows one player to effectively launch multiple waves of high-damaging ships at the same time, while not bogging down those other players for anything more than 20 or 40 CP or AP in reinforcement cost. Now we'll take this one for example. This one is currently being hit by 2 separate airstrikes, as you can see here. This carrier is the only target left. It is being slowly whittled down by these aircraft, Mistrals, which don't do anything, the Red Beast, the CVMs, and another fleet that is around here somewhere, but I can't see it. Now, as you may have noticed, my aircraft took a little bit of damage. That is just because of the fact that these have anti-aircraft weapons. The anti-aircraft guns are shooting back in retaliation, so you will take a little bit of damage. That said, the Ceres, as well as Solar Whale, have an ability to repair your aircraft when they come in, making them particularly useful for strategic strikes. I think that just about wraps up the actual functions and purposes of a strategic strike. As you can see, you can use these to wipe out NPC fleets relatively easily. I have already killed one fleet, it looks like. Actually, it looks like I lost a fleet. Or I lost 2 waves. Or no, this would have been one. It's only 10 ships. This would have been 1 wave. So I lost a wave. I don't know what killed it exactly, because none of these should have been able to do it. But I did lose one. So you can have losses. This one is still going. This one is still going. Huh. Interesting. This fleet is showing as null. Very interesting. Now, as mentioned previously, strategic strikes can be very useful for attacking bases. I'm not going to do one right here in this video, but you can use your imagination. You move your ships within range of the target, you set your cones up to overlap the base will get highlighted, and you click launch. Now, most bases will not be able to actually damage your aircraft in any meaningful capacity in a strategic strike. However, you also cannot kill the base with your strike. It does not matter how many strikes you use. You will always leave the base at 1 HP. But, in the case of player bases or cities, this could be particularly effective. If you reduce the health of the target all the way down to basically nothing, then when you send your real fleets in, they will engage and defeat the NPC fleet, and then immediately just tap the base and the base will die. In the case of cities, which can take quite a bit of time, this can save you a lot of casualties. Additionally, in sieges and in city attacks, when there are reinforcement fleets that are warping in, if they enter the radius of the strategic strikes, they will actually be stopped. They will be stopped by 1 aircraft carrying strike force. If you have the upgrade on your ship, such as this one right here, that allows you to hit multiple targets in 1 strategic strike. As you can see, I can't quite get it yet. Then, 1 strike fleet could potentially lock down 2, 3, or even 4 enemy fleets, and it can lock them down for effectively the duration of the strategic strike. Very, very effective when dealing with defenses for your hive, or when attacking an enemy player. Let's take a hypothetical here and say that this outpost was actually a hostile outpost. If I were to put my strategic strikes overlapping this base, and the enemy was to go, well, I'm going to attack you, and send his fleet out of the base to come and try and fight me, the moment these leave the base, my aircraft will stop attacking the base, engage the fleet, and lock the fleet down, preventing it from moving. This is the same as if you were to attack it directly with an actual player fleet. However, because these are aircraft, and because only defensive weaponry can engage those aircraft, it will take a very, very long time, if at all, for the strike craft to go down, allowing for that fleet to come over to you. If you are doing two strike fleets and one defensive fleet, this means that you can completely soften up those defensive fleets or even kill them and then engage with your defense or with your defender fleet. If you engage with the defender fleet, I cannot remember exactly which of the two becomes the flanking fleet, but if I remember correctly, the strike is still considered the primary attack, and whatever ship fleet you use to attack the defender will become the flanking fleet, allowing you to use one fleet and have it take no damage at all while your strike craft effectively tank for free. Using strategic strikes can be a very effective way to level up all of your aircraft, especially in the early game. Sending out a strategic strike fleet that is full of AC-721s, Series, Tundras, or any other type of aircraft carrier that you happen to have, and just using strike craft can allow you to wipe out an NPC fleet and generate a lot of experience. Now, of course, my ships are already at max XP, so I can't generate any experience for them, but as you can see here, they take damage and get wiped out, and I lose basically nothing. I lost a single red beast. One. And I took down a battle cruiser, 3 cruisers, and of course all their aircraft. I'm not sure why it says that this red beast engaged, but whatever. These generics, rationals did not fight. These bullfrogs did not fight. Most of the damage, it looks like, came from the AA of the Starsweeper. The SD-59 didn't have any AA, or at least not any that hit. The Crasher had minimal, and the CV had minimal. As you can also see, the CVM did okay damage, but nothing to write home about. The Red Beast did quite a lot. This is mostly due to the fact that there were cruisers in that fleet. The Strix did way more than it should have compared to these two. Again, energy damage. The Mistral did next to nothing, and the 2 VTOS B did more damage than any other group of aircraft. And here you can see we gained the rewards from our strategic strike. Oh, weird. I had a silent assassin. That wasn't supposed to be there. Don't use these. They're bad. As you can see, they're just bad. I think that about wraps it up for strategic strikes. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. If you have other things you would like to learn about Infinite Lagrange, or just simply to refresh, feel free to check out the other videos in this playlist. There should be about 7 of them when it is all said and done, maybe a few more, but I plan to wait until the next phase starts to do an actual from beginning to end game kind of leveling guide for how to quickly level your base. I hope you guys enjoyed this content, and if you did, please let me know. I'll see you guys next time.